the little JPEG things, like the files that you need to click on.
Okay. Why don't I get on here? Hide thumbnail view. Stop share. There's everybody. Huh. So you guys just see my thingies, huh?
Yeah. See your mouse moving around across your Zoom captures screen grab.
So if I do that, you see that thing now, right?
I only see your Zoom captures web grab. Yeah.
Roger that.
Okay, looks like, boom, live.
I think I'm all right.
All right, cool, cool. Let's see, we've got a few people joining us already. And so if you guys can see it, you can go panelists down to the bottom. You can click on the little chat box. It should put it up over there on the side. If it doesn't right away, you can minimize your screen, click the chat, reopen it, pops open, and then it puts your chat over there on your right. And then you can also see the chat window, and you can see anybody that's coming on. I already see a bunch of people.
I'm going to trust you guys on the chat window.
Cool. I think that's a good call.
Well, we can watch if somebody's talking shit about us. So.
So, and then let me just check over on the live Facebook side and just make sure that sucker's still running. Yeah, that looks good. Right on. Okay. Cool. Let's give it a minute as people are logging on. There, you can see people joining in. So we'll give everyone a second to get in there. Looks like all three of you guys are outside. I'm the only one braving it in the inside today.
With no air.
Wimping it out. Yeah, with no air. No air conditioner. But cool. All right, looks like we got a bunch of people over there on the Facebook Live side of things. So that's cool. We're getting a few logging on over here on Zoom.
Oh, I think I figured it out.
Got it.
Like that thing.
There's your wheel.
Boom. Stop share.
There you go.
Perfect.
Okay, and I got a bunch of stuff I'm going to do for you guys as well, because I've got some little things to share for you when you guys are talking and referencing things. So we got Martha and Steve Hewitt joining us again from Columbus, Ohio.
Cool.
On.
Hi guys.
They have been on watching every show, so happy to have them back. And now I'm going to look back on some of these. We've got Michael Higgins again joining in on. So cool. Excellent. Paul Maynard again. I've seen you on here before as well, so thank you for joining us again. It looks like we're up to about 55 over there on the Facebook side of things, and so I think we're going to go ahead and get rolling because I think those numbers are going to keep going up, but I don't want to spend too much time on this little intro. So, hi everyone. Chris Toronto here.
What's up, Chris?
Wine Country. What's happening, boys? Glad to have you guys on. Glad to have everybody else watching over on Facebook land and over here on Zoom. We have a cool show today. This one I've been looking forward to. I've been noodling it for a little while. And I remember when I first texted Mark to say, hey, what do you think of this? He was game right away. And so with a little bit of back and forth, we found a panel of really cool, fun people to talk to today about music and wine. And so that is our subject today. I want to go really quickly around though and let everybody introduce themselves and their brand and just a quick 1-2 about the brand and themselves. Let's start with Daniel. Daniel, why don't you kick it off and talk a little bit about yourself and Thacher.
Cool. Well, thanks for having us on the show. And so I'm Daniel Callen. I work for Thacher Winery. I came here in 2013 as an intern. I was kind of hopping around doing the harvests in Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, and I've been here as cellar master and assistant winemaker. Pretty small winery, make about 5,000 cases. We're pretty diverse though. I think last count we make about 24 different wines, which is a major headache for our GM trying to figure out SKUs and how to sell everything. But me and Sherman, my boss, have a hard time helping ourselves with that. So pretty small. It's just a 3-person team in the winery. We've got 2 full-time guys in the vineyard. We've got 1 vineyard out here in Adelaide District, 1 in the Willow Creek AVA, just off of Kyler Canyon Road. Yeah.
Cool.
And then Paul Lopez with Denner. Fill us in.
Yeah, I'm Paul Lopez from Denner Vineyards. Been with them now a couple of years. Started out at Via Creek Cellars, worked over at Alta Colina. Denner's 156-acre property on Vineyard Drive in the Willow Creek District, pretty much where Mark and Daniel are at the same time. And we do, about 8,000 cases. Our main focus is Rhone, and we do some cab blends as well. And it's just the 4 of us in the winery, and we pull an intern every now and then, and it's a lot of fun. There's great music and good times.
And that's what we're going to be talking about, that great music that you guys use in the cellar. And our local resident and awesome kind of star of music and wine, Mark Adams, last but not least, of course. Great to have you on the show as well, sir. Talk a little bit about yourself and your brand.
Happy to be here. So we're also Willow Creek AVA. Vineyard Drive cuts between us and Denner, which is right behind me. It's ledge because it's one of the few almost completely flat pieces on the west side of Paso Robles. Right behind me, we have head train Grenache planted, and then in the background there, you have Denner. Right behind that is the James Berry Vineyard, to give you an idea of where we're at. Exclusively Rhone varietals, and more specific Chateauneuf du Pape varietals, mostly Grenache and Syrah, a little bit of Roussanne, Senso, and Counoise, and 15 acres planted, about 30 plantable.
Right on. And the team there is you and your wife, right?
Yeah, my wife does all the admin pretty much, and I do the farming and winemaking, and we have vineyard hand about 3 days a week, and a little bit of help on the admin side as well.
Cool. Well, today's show is all about the musicality of wine, how music kind of plays into it, whether you play an instrument, whether you're just simply really into music, and how that plays into what happens, whether it be in the cellar, out on the tractor, during crush, whatever it might be, because it happens. It's almost as standard as beer and wine, as vineyard dogs or cellar dogs and wine, and then music and wine, right? There's probably even more correlations like that. But every time you walk into any of these wineries and you're walking into the production facility, something is likely blaring. Because as Mark, I think you had said it, sometimes some of these things that you're doing, it's like day in, day out, the same thing. And there's something like a soundtrack to kind of cut that repetition.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk a little bit about music itself and the fact that some of you guys are musicians. I know we've got our resident audiophile here as well. And so let's kick it off. Mark, it's kind of started from this. I got this a little while back ago. Now I've seen you play a bunch of times for sure in town, but you gave me this CD when I came by with some journalists not long ago. And I dig that CD, and I just thought it was so Paso, and I definitely wanted to get you involved in one of these conversations. Talk a little bit about music and your background and what it means for your brand and wine.
Well, to go way back, the first gig I ever had as maybe a freshman in high school, maybe even earlier. I think I was a freshman or a sophomore, maybe, was at James Berry Vineyard for Terry and Pebble Smith. And it was a ragtag bunch of guys. And there was, wasn't even any part of the industry that it is now. But I've been involved in music for my whole life and was madly in love with this area. and always had hoped to come back. And pie in the sky would have been to be involved with music and this farm that I grew up on somehow. So the opportunity came to come back and farm this, and music never left, and started playing harvest parties, and getting more and more involved in the wine industry. And that's about as succinctly as I can put it. You know, it's just that they are completely harmonious industries, and just like anything of, you know, cultural significance, and wine and music, weddings, funerals, you know, graduations, in any major event culturally seems in many cases to be framed by wine and music. So there's always been a connection for me.
Yeah, right on. And I brought up the fact that the other
Shouldn't we cheers at some point? I thought I was
yeah,
told
yeah,
that,
let's do that.
I was told there would be drinking.
There is drinking. Sorry, everyone. We are drinking, and let's cheers.
Cheers.
Guys. Up what we're drinking.
Cheers out there, everyone.
Thanks for that reminder, Mark. Hang on just a second, you guys. So we are enjoying today. Come on, go. There we go. All right. 3 wines from Ledge. We have that's because it's starting on the left, so I'll start with that, although I wouldn't consider it that order. But the 17 Ledge Adams Ranch Vineyard, Willow Creek District, of course. You can see the percentages there, but 51 Syrah, 46 Grenache, 2 Roussanne, and 1 Mourvedre. We've got the Thacher, 100% Cinsault. We will be talking about these wines at some point as we continue on our conversation, of course, and we'll have these guys talk about them. And then the Denner, the Ditch Digger Concrete. That's different than what would be the normal Ditch Digger is what I'm catching here. But that one's got a little list of 55 Grenache, 20 Mourvedre, 13 Syrah, 5 Cinsault, 5 Graciano, and 2 Carignan. And so that was the 17, Thacher was the 18, and 17 for the Ledge. So here, let's front label there for what we're having today. It was too hot to go outside and do an outside shot, so that is my kitchen floor that I did sweep clean.
It is hot.
We got a nice breeze though.
Yeah, I'm catching that.
Yeah. So back to the music thing, and then we'll talk a little bit more about wine. Pilo, as he's known, Paul Lopez, play a little guitar. You've been around in a lot of different cellars in town. One of them, of course, Via Creek, that Chris is known for a very eclectic musical taste. That,
to say the least, yeah.
Yeah, but talk a little bit about music and how it plays into a little bit of what you're into.
You know, I started playing guitar probably around 12. I had like a Sears old Silvertone that was given to me for my birthday, and I used to watch my stepdad in church playing, and he had all these licks that never changed, and I thought that was really fun and cool, so I stayed with it. And at some point, you know, like 18, I really wanted to be in a band, so I started a band, and I should have called it This Band Sucks Band, and it kind of was that too. But then kind of stayed in music, and my buddies and I started a band. That's me in the yellow. We're playing at the Morro Bay Harbor Festival way back when.
Nice.
And we were called right there Quinn, because there was 5 of us, so Quinn. And I'll tell you what, that mustache, go ahead and grow that today. But I love being in music. I played a lot of backyard gatherings, just playing guitar, just jamming. And it seems like the more I drank, the better I got, according to myself. And, you know, coming, like, for instance, Via Creek, we talked about that. You know, Chris, I mean, we'd be playing Eminem during Harvest and switch it up to, you know, something even softer or weirder. But there was always something really cool playing. And so that always made it a lot of fun. And one of the things that Anthony at Denner and Alex really want to do is keep the music going, especially during Harvest. And, you know, we'll be popping out Led Zeppelin right after we process. We got all these pump overs or punch downs to do whatever it is. And it's might be Led Zeppelin, might be Radiohead, and Anthony loves, and we love Ryan Bingham. And so we'll get some Ryan Bingham going in there. And who knows, Sinatra might show up too. But it does play, like Mark said, the they're cohesive. They work well together, music and wine, and I look forward to more of it.
Yeah, right on. Daniel, your handle on Instagram is the Slam Dance Kid. I'm pretty sure that has a story in and of itself. And I also love the fact that you even said yourself that there are days where you play something and you are just playing it and it's just pissing everyone else off, but somehow it's working for you. Anyway, talk a little bit about that kind of stuff. And why are you Slam Dance Kid?
So I grew up in just outside Washington, D.C. on the East Coast. And so as a kid, we'd head out, to DC, and when we were young, we'd have our, someone's poor dad would have to drive us out to some punk show in a sketchy neighborhood in DC. But so slam dancing was like a little bit more punk than mosh pitting, I guess. So it was a thing that even though I was a pretty skinny, lanky kid, I was pretty good at. So I just became kind of the slam dance kid, and it sort of stuck with me through the years. Yeah, and as far as music and wine, the first harvest I worked was actually on the East Coast. A guy called Nate Walsh, he's got a small family winery over there now with his wife. He used to make everyone who was on the harvest crew burn a harvest CD, and those were the only 6 CDs that you were allowed to listen to all harvest. So everyone burned copies of their mixtapes for each other, and you got to know and love and hate all those mixtapes at the same time, because they became the songs that sort of defined harvest. By the end of harvest, you were pretty sick of them, though. So
I like how you call it a mixtape, because that's what we call it. We don't call it a mixed CD, even though that's the genre, that's the medium that you were using. You said DC. Did you Bad Brains? They're a DC based. Did you see those guys? Is that on your mix?
I never saw the Bad Brains. They were a little bit before my time, but I was really big into.
We're old.
Well, so I loved the Bad Brains. I loved Minor Threat, Fugazi, Teen Idols. Sort of that DC hardcore scene, which it's a little bit militant and purist in a way. I feel like that sort of rubbed off on me. Sort of even the winemaking. It's I got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I think definitely growing up on Minor Threat did a.
Is there anything punk in here in this Cinsault? Talk a little bit about this wine and what is this when it comes to a genre of music?
So Cinsault is a grape that there's not much of in California. There's about 75 acres, but it's a grape I got to work with a lot and became familiar with in South Africa, where I did about 4 vintages, and it sort of makes this super bright, spicy, fennel, white pepper, sort of aromatic red wine. And over there they call it either poor man's Pinot or the Pinot of the desert, because it's like Grenache. It's a super hardy plant. You can dry farm it. It loves to be head trained or bush vine. And actually, when you sort of look back at the history of California, a friend of mine was just showing me an article from a newspaper up in Napa or Sonoma dated 1875. And he was telling everyone at the time that they should go through and plant this grape called Black Malvasia or Black Malvoisie. And turns out it's the synonym for Cinsault. So Cinsault is a grape that's been in California since at least the 1870s. So, almost 150 years. Unfortunately, not much of it is left. There's a couple old vineyards up in Lodi. But it's like a distinctly Californian grape. And I love this wine. It has the potential to make really physically ripe wines in California at about 12% alcohol, which, things move fast in Paso. It's hard to get physically ripe Grenache sub 14% alcohol. But anyway, our winemaking across the board is pretty minimalist or low intervention. We basically bring it in, foot stomp it, seal the tank for 2 weeks almost, pop the lid, it started fermenting. We work it every other day. So very minimal working of the juice and cap. And then it usually spends about 30 days on the skins before we press. This gets aged in neutral puncheon until it finishes mallow, then we rack to concrete. As far as music goes, it's sort of, you know, I really dig sort of the lo-fi surf punk thing that's sort of going around these days. Beach Fossils or Best Coast or something in that sort of genre would be kind of the genre that musically would go with this one, I think.
Right on. Here, I want to share real quick the Glen Rose Vineyard. Hang on, where this wine comes from. Sorry. I'm so good a second ago. I've got all your pictures there. Okay, right on. So, which is one of the few terraced vineyards in the Paso AVA, but just a really unique and beautiful spot. So,
Yeah, I like what that Cinsault is showing. That spice really stands out, and the freshness of the wine too. Sounds like you did a little carbonic there, and that I think that really shows nicely too. Good balance.
Yeah, it's a fun little wine, and it's actually interesting. So there's a compound that you find in Cinsault in the grapes that you also find in Syrah. And it tends to get sort of cooked out in extreme heat. That's why you see these very savory, peppery, cool climate Syrahs. Whereas in warmer climates, they tend to be a little bit fleshier and fruitier. Cinsault seems to hang on to that compound a little bit better, even in hot climates. And actually that vineyard Glen Rose, the way it's trellised, it's one trellis, but there's 3 rows on the trellis. And there's a single row against the hill, and then the tractor row, and then 2 rows on the far side of the hill. And so there's actually pretty limited sunshine on those vines because the hill blocks the sun for the good portion of the morning, and then sort of that triple rows tightly spaced together in the afternoon. So it really holds on to that savory character, that white pepper aromatic.
Yeah, I love
which
it.
Absolutely
It's great.
love. It's hard to get.
yeah.
Great with pizza.
Super expressive. It's got great acid. It's bright. It's light. You know, a little chill on it, and man, that thing is just so delicious.
Kind of a low tannin grape anyway, and it comes through perfectly. Yeah.
Seems
It's a great
so,
like
man.
grilled octopus wine.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
We get huge waftings of like bubble yum when we press Cinsault. I'm
Okay.
just wondering if your experience is similar, because the aromatics really are round and fruity, but not in you know, in a hammer sort of a way. It's
Sure.
it's bubbly clouds, for lack of a better term, you know, aromatically in the cellar when it's fresh.
Yeah. What do you got? You know what clone you guys have by chance?
Yeah, it's you know what? I just answered this email. Let me pull it up really quick. I just had it. So continue on without me. I don't recall off the top of my head, but hold on.
It seems like some of the more recent French clones do have a little bit more of that, especially for playing with carbonic. They go a little bit more bubblegummy, a little bit tutti or fruity. The clone that this is planted to is O2, which is a clone that was taken from a nursery. The original vine material was planted in the 1890s.
I think that's what ours is too.
Okay, yeah. So my feeling is that clone sort of tends to keep that savory aspect a little bit better than the French clones, which they're a little bit more adapted to the French climate. We bring them over here and they get a little bit shook up and maybe do show the warmth of the climate a little bit more. They tend to be a little bit fruitier. But.
We
03.
dose,
Our clone is 03.
Okay, yeah.
we dose a little in our ditch digger concrete we're tasting today. We have 5%, and
Okay.
it's amazing just that 5%, what a difference it makes in the blend. And I think it's going to play in the ditch digger for a while.
Awesome.
Yeah, Pilo, keep talking, because I wanted to move on to a little bit of your wine, and a little bit more about.
Yeah, ditch digger is, you know, when we talk about our flagship wines, it's Mother of Exiles, the Bordeaux style blend, the Dirt Worshipper, cool climate Syrah blend with a little bit of our estate fruit Syrah in there too. And then ditch digger is pretty much always a Grenache blend. It's been made, you know, for several years with Denner. We just popped some 13s the other day that were fabulous, showing a little savoriness from that year too. And the Ditch Digger for 2017, I think we remember as winemakers, the 17 was just hot as Hades. We got that blast of triple digit heat toward the end of August into September, actually Labor Day area. And, you know, starting out with Grenache, which we love, it's one of our favorites. So we've all been to Chateauneuf and we just love tasting through the Grenache. And, you know, of course, one thing that the old world has in Chateauneuf that we don't are 80 to 100-year-old vineyards when it comes to Grenache. But I think we're getting there in Paso. But Ditch Digger Concrete was, we do our regular bottling Ditch Digger in wood, just an oak blend of just a spice component of different coopers. And then we throw, the final blend goes into the concrete and sits in there for over a year before we bottle it. I think Anthony started back in, I want to say 2013, maybe 11. We started bottling the concrete on its own. Anthony went to Chateauneuf in 2011 and toured through and was able to taste through a lot of the different wineries that had concrete and noticed the freshness and just loved the wine, the aromatics, everything. So we employed that into this Ditch Digger Concrete.
Nice.
It still gives us that freshness. We still get that slow micro-ox. You know, we firm in our concrete upstairs, the big 4-tonners, and then we have one that's down in the cellar at, you know, 57, 58 degrees that we age in. And, you know, throughout the aging cycle within that year, it really changes. It starts out a little bit rough when it first goes in, goes through kind of a middle-aged, you know, teenager thing. And then it, by the time it gets, you know, to 2-3 months before bottling, it has just come out beautiful. We're really happy with this 2017. 17 was a challenging year. We had, you know, kind of a good year going there for a while. Then the extreme heat came, but we held out and didn't pick too early, and we ended up okay. And I think this Ditch Digger Concrete with the Grenache, the Mourvedre, Syrah, we were talking about the Cinsault in there, a touch of Graciano and Carignan. It's just a fun blend to put together. It's one of my favorites for us to get together and taste through it to get it ready for bottling.
Yeah, and so when I said, okay, you guys, let's put up wines that you want to talk about, how does it mesh into this topic about music? I mean, you got a story here at all?
Well, you know, for me, when we're, you know, throughout the harvest season, there is a blast of great music coming through. And, you know, if I'm standing over Grenache, like Mark talked about bubble yum earlier, and it kind of, sometimes I get that off of Grenache. And I think music, whatever is playing at the moment, and I'm on top of that Grenache doing a pump over or tasting or whatever, that's my connection. And it's kind of fun that way because you never know what's going to be played. And you could go from something really crazy to something super soft, and it depends where you're at. But Grenache is probably one of my favorite varieties, and you can throw anything at it. Throw some punk at it. I don't care. I think it'd be a lot of fun to try some punk with it too. I don't think we'd get away with it too long in the winery, but we can do kind of what we want in music. It is a great time.
I love how savory this is. There's definitely some of that little bit of bacon fat going on in it, but it's not too like pronounced. If anything, that kind of rich, unctuous savoriness definitely shines through a little bit more. It's just almost in the background. Actually, if anything, the ledge wine, that one has way more of that kind of rich bacony fat thing going for it, and it's just so yummy. But it's also just like that red berry thing. It's probably all of that Grenache in there. It keeps it bright, keeps it light, but it's so deep and wonderful. I love that wine.
Yeah, appreciate it. You know, we look at the Syrah as being kind of the big backbone of it. The Mourvedre in this is, I mean, without the Mourvedre, it's been averaging around 20%. It's just a different wine as we dose the Mourvedre in. We'd like to actually step up the Mourvedre just a little more because we like the way that plays in there. It doesn't come across as being the bully throughout the blend, but it finds itself in the middle and continues to finish. And I think Mourvedre is holding up that Grenache beautifully. So that's, for us, that's kind of a hit.
Right on. Hey, Mark, let's run through your wine. And then I've got some really weird eclectic questions for you guys. But
Yes.
I love this wine. I'm digging it. I'm digging all three of you guys' wines. But let's talk a little bit about this guy, this Syrah Grenache Roussanne, 2% Roussanne, so a little white wine in there, and then some Mourvedre.
Yeah, trying to get more and more Roussanne out of here. Planting it exclusively to co-ferment. And that was something that, maybe down the road we'll attempt to do a white, but we want to co-ferment the Roussanne. We'll probably get as much as 10% this year. And the Mourvedre really doesn't do well up here. So we're one of the rare sandy soil sites up here. We're in sand and sandstone, by heavy clay. Mourvedre likes its feet in the water and its head in the sun, and we don't have that cooling available to us here. We've got really pretty intense drainage. There you got it. That's our Roussanne right there. One back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Roussanne, and then behind that to the left, and to the right, that's all Estrella clone Syrah Mousse, taken from Bone Rock, and then the Grenache is behind me. A lot of the Spanish Grenache in there, and sort of mixed in. So we're pretty dedicated to Syrah and Grenache. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Cinsault and Counoise coming online. They're doing really, really well compared to, especially compared to what we've tried to do with Mourvedre, which unfortunately had to rip out. The Cinsault and the Counoise are just kicking ass. And, so we're in year 3 right now. We'll probably get a ton off of an acre and a half. And that's with dropping a ton of fruit too, a bunch of fruit. So that's, for the foreseeable future, we're just going to continue to rehabilitate what we have. Even though we have about 10 or 15 more acres to go, we're gonna sort of sit tight and get everything dialed in. We do one blend from here, so we're field blending, and we do between 1,000 and 2,000 cases, closer to 1,000.
Yeah, and then a couple other SKUs from sourced at different other vineyards.
Yeah, so 2018 on. It's Adams Ranch, James Berry Vineyard, and Bien Nacido. And Bien Nacido is the home of the Estrella clone that we eventually sourced. So it kind of is a full circle thing there. But the expression of the Bien Nacido Estrella clone and ours and Bone Rock are 3 very different expressions of that Estrella clone. So it's really fun to see how they do vintage to vintage.
Right on. Delicious wine for sure. Does this one bring about any thoughts of something playing in the cellar while you were making this, or is this one just kind of a amalgamation of all of it?
Well, musically, when I'm on a tractor, I'll listen to different things than in the cellar, and sorting, and for tractor life, it's like new age music or chants, or same going with farm labor stuff that's really sort of zen and repetitive. I have a friend who does a show called West Coast Fog, and it's new age music throughout the ages, and it's wonderfully meditative. And in the cellar, mornings are filled with jazz a lot of the times, and we'll go into dub and old school country, and a lot of times sorting gets a little more aggressive with Daniel was talking about gangster rap. We listen to a lot of that while we're sorting, to get you going. Punk rock, Beastie Boys,
Pearl Jam.
I am going to no comment on the Pearl Jam, but
I heard a rumor.
First schism.
But yeah, so a wide variety of music. We are fortunate enough to be able to help out and make the wines over at the Saxon facility, and there is an amazing record collection there. And we pump a wide variety of sounds through that during
Okay, so for all 3 of you, all right, sorting table. It's monotonous. It's just kind of real quick. Daniel, what music on the sorting table?
Detroit Cobras is usually in pretty heavy rotation. songs everyone knows, but with a little bit of a fresh twist. So
Right on. Pilo, sorting table. You're
Oh,
just
it could be anything really, but I can remember some Sturgill Simpson being out there.
right on. Mark.
MCA, Beastie Boys.
That gets you through. Right on.
A lot of Beasties.
So
Got to fight for your right to harvest.
let's do this. The 2017 vintage, because we've got two bottles. I'm sorry. We do have 2 bottles here. 2017 vintage. Its soundtrack was.
Ooh. Okay.
Its soundtrack was?
It's
Yes. What's its
We
soundtrack?
got to come up with a compilation here.
let's say
Maybe.
a
3
soundtrack
songs.
that was, because part of that vintage we want to forget. But you know, one of
Because
the
it was
things
friggin' hot.
one of the things Anthony said was, you know, as winemakers, we're at our best in challenging vintages. So does that mean we're listening to some challenging music at the same time? Like throwing it Annie DeFranco in the middle of harvest? Maybe that's a little challenging.
Oh, that might be a little hard. I don't know.
It doesn't go. It doesn't happen.
No, not
I'm just
even.
saying, but God, for 2017, something a little harsh.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking honestly, Iron Maiden Run for the Hills, because all of a sudden you're just friggin'
How about a little White Snake?
Oh, there it
White
is.
Snake.
So let's talk about that shirt, because we actually had somebody ask about that shirt of all things. Let me see. Let me look at this. Judging from your shirt, I'm guessing that you occasionally listen to White Snake's Wine, Women, and Song.
Well, I'll be honest, I haven't heard White Snake in probably 15 to 18 years, but a good friend of ours, we all know Mike Kobayashi, gave me this shirt. When White Snake toured with Def Leppard for a bit, and Mike used to, or he still does, manage Def Leppard. And so he had a box in the back at the restaurant one day, and he goes, just grab what you want. Well, everybody was grabbing Def Leppard shirts, and so I had to grab a White Snake shirt. And so that's the evolution of this White Snake shirt.
Pilo, you got the short straw.
Tell you what.
Daniel, come on. 2018 then. Let's talk about a song that brings about 2018 for you.
well, so
Soundtrack.
I actually have. Maybe I should do the screen share thing. I don't know, but
Do it.
Yeah, bust it out.
all right, hang on. Let me see.
Because 18, let's think about 18. 18 had a heat wave, but it wasn't like 17. 17 was like, what was that, 40 days long or something like that, where 18, it was hot, but then we coasted into this really cool harvest. Oh, there you go.
So this is a playlist I think I've been keeping it going for like 4 or 5 years now. It's 14 hours long, which is about the length of a harvest day. So it's this guy gets in pretty heavy rotation pretty often. A little bit of everything in there.
Every soundtrack or every list though has one song that you sit there and you go, oh, I got to hear that again. I just got to click that like replay on that.
You know what's 2018? I'll have to think back. Black Joe Lewis was in really heavy rotation. I just saw one of his songs pop up there, and sort of like I don't know if like James Brown and the Bad Brains had a baby. That's sort of the vibration there. And it's pretty good for harvest work, and the whole album is awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm no help here because I have a very wide interest, but a very linear playlist. I listen to a ton of Merle Haggard, ton of Bob Dylan, you know, the old school country guys. It's like, you know, Lefty, Frizzell, George Jones, Merle Haggard. That'll keep me going all day long. King Tubby, you know, Dub Scientist, Yellow Man, you know, totally into dub. Huge Dead Kennedys fan. But it's a lot of older stuff. And, you know, Cardi B, she came around. That was a big force majeure, you know. Kurt Weill gets a ton of play. But vintage to vintage, you know, I tend to roll with the same punches year after year, and you know, listen to, you know, the new things as they come through. But I have to say I'm little bit of a traditionalist when it comes to the regular playlists.
Well, you know, your musical influences that you just rattled off there at the beginning are definitely in some of your music. I mean, I've got this CD here, but there's also that Loaded for Lefty that somebody actually mentioned that they love, and then so much of your music that you end up playing when you're like at some of the the not Beaver Stock, but what's it called now, Whale Rock
Yep.
Festival, and a couple other places I've seen you play. Plus, you're oftentimes at some of the wineries. So, real quick. One Time Spaceman.
Yeah.
Talk about that name. That's a band that Mark has.
Yeah, it was just one of the bands. Just Rancho Deluxe was before that, and that was a pretty strict country rock band with definitely a line to be held with regard to arrangements and Scruggs style banjo and J.D. Manis played pedal steel, and we had amazing. Megan Lynch was a national fill champion who played on all those records, and you didn't mess around. It was country with some rules, I mean, outlaw country is outlaw country, and it has its things, and you can say that they're outlaws, but it's still more or less 1-4-5 blues. And One Time Spaceman was opposite. It was a stream of consciousness thing that came after a late night of recording that was in a song called One Time Spaceman. That was like a 7-minute song that was completely experimental. And I wanted to get outside of the rules of being in a band that had to be a certain way. It was after I left Los Angeles and had made a go at touring with country band. And I wanted to make sure that if I were going to devote as much time and energy to a band again, that there would be very little to no rules involved with myself or the musicians playing in it. One Time Spaceman is just a play on that we're floating on the rock one time, just like Carpe Diem or any of a number, great many ways to say you can live your life once and once only. Unless, of course, you believe in reincarnation, but even then, you should still give it your best go every time you go around.
Throwing it out there, Mark, sometimes I show up harvest mornings. I might be the first one, which is rare because Alex is there always so early. But if I'm there, I'll throw on Rancho Deluxe as the first thing to start and, play
Awesome.
through the whole album. And I'll tell you, it's a great start of the morning for sure to get it going.
Thank you for saying so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right on. You guys, we're coming up here, inching closer to our time together, actually, but not there yet. So I want to toss out a few questions from some. I'm even getting texts at this point in time, and I love this one because this is such a music question. This is like one of those like from High Fidelity or something like that, right? It's just straight up top 3 bands. It's top 3. That's it.
Bob Dylan, Lefty, Frizzell. You're going to give me a second on the third one.
Philo.
I'm always going to be a Led Zeppelin fan for sure. I love Merle Haggard, some of the old Merle Haggard stuff too. I saw Mark play acoustic one time, a bunch of songs on Merle. I thought that was amazing. And not really a band, but I've always been a James Taylor fan just because of my little acoustic guitar and him, and we seem to mesh pretty well.
Right on. Daniel, you're going to say bands we don't know, aren't you?
Fugazi.
Minor Threat would be up there. I think all time might be The National, their older stuff. Some of the newer stuff's a little bit too polished for me, but one of those things where like they come out with a new album and I sort of don't like it, and I revisit it 3 years later. I'm like, oh my God, this album was actually amazing.
Either they've matured or you have.
Yeah, exactly. I think it might be more me getting a little bit older. This band actually, Camp Dogs, they've got a solid couple albums that I could listen to desert island style if it came to it and not be too
Yeah.
Geez. Third one.
You got it. Third. Now say something mainstream. Our listening and watching audience are like, what's this kid talking about?
I'm gonna throw
Metallica.
throw a shout out to my friends band, the Mother Hips, which is,
Yeah.
although they're my peers, they're absolutely one of the greatest rock bands, in my opinion, to ever
The
be
best
on
live
stage.
shows I've ever seen, I think.
So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna give them a shout out.
They used to play noon concerts at Sac State years ago, and that was absolutely the best. I went up to Chico a couple times to see them, and they were spot on, man. I love those guys.
Always worth the drive.
So cool. That's 3 for all of you, I think. And so we got that one going on. You had said Desert Island, and that was kind of one that was in part of the same kind of question. And so it's perfect. We got that covered at this point in time. I want to talk a little bit about what projects and what things you guys might have coming up. We are actually looking at the ability to open. Paso Wine Country can actually open this coming weekend. Not everybody is going to be opening, but a lot of wineries going to be opening. Of course, it's going to be with a lot of different protocols in place as far as safety protocols and sanitization and all of that, social distancing. So not everybody will. A lot are planning on doing it, definitely by appointment only. But I guess we could go with Daniel. What's happening over at Thacher? Are you guys opening up this weekend, and what are you up to?
We're opening up tomorrow. We're highly recommending appointments just because we're going to completely stay out of the tasting room, so everything will be outdoors, and we've got sort of socially distanced tables. We've sort of moved from wooden tables to tables that we can sanitize completely between groups or sittings. So we're all pretty excited about this, and we spent the last couple of days pressure washing the tasting room and polishing the floors and dusting out the cobwebs because it's been a quiet 2 months here in the tasting room. So we're going to be pretty happy to get back in action, I think. So
Right on. Cool. And then Pilo, what's happening at dinner?
Dinner is, we did sort of a soft opening last weekend, and it was just a few folks that came, mostly local. And, you know, we still have, like they were talking about, Daniel was talking about, the same distancing in the tables on the patio, same in the actual enclosed tasting room. You know, our staff is geared up, and they wear masks, they have gloves that they change out in between. There's basically one tasting room person per table. And once they're done with that table, they change out. We're trying to keep that going. We've got some exciting wines coming up. You know, we're releasing the Sacred Burrow Carignan, 100% Carignan. And, you know, the Vermentino will be coming up soon. So there's certain exciting things happening. We've had a lot of people stay in touch with us and excited to come to the winery. So unfortunately, it's appointment only still. And I want to make sure that everyone has a good time, but also safe.
Yeah, right on. Mark, what's happening with you guys?
So pick up and delivery. If somebody wants to come out and check out the vineyard and pick up wine from us, then that's absolutely encouraged. It's, you know, we don't have a tasting room. So it's all, you know, the appointment sort of is, hey, can we come out and pick up wine and see the vineyard? And that's encouraged. Virtual tastings is the one thing that I want to encourage people to reach out to us for. If they want to taste through some stuff with me, then by all means, reach out to us and set up a time to have a chat. I'll stay on with people for as long as they want to sit and talk about our wines and what we're doing. So, you know, that's really, you know, the main thing. I'm happy to deliver to San Luis Obispo County. If somebody wants to order and say hello. But yeah, we're pretty exclusive with regard to tasting. We've always allowed Wine Club to come out and say hi. And we'll do house concerts from time to time that are technically private. So we encourage people to check out the Wine Club and to just email us, talk to us. If you want to taste, if you want to meet, we're happy to do that.
Right on, right on. We have one more question. Somebody's sneaking in, and I love this question, actually. I'm just going to read it as it is from Michael Higgins. I have a different music question for you. The conversation is about music, of course, for human ears. How about music for wine's ears? Music is vibration. What do you think about playing music for the wine so it feels the vibration while it ages in the cellar?
That's an awesome question. And there are people I've been seeing who are marketing wine based on what music they're playing. There's like a Metallica bourbon out there, and supposedly, you're right. Have you heard this one, Daniel? Like where they're playing certain records while they're doing that. I want to say just a quick bird walk on that one is there's a condition, chromesthesia, where Duke Ellington had it, where music would appear in colors, and it would be different, where he considered like the note D would be a burlap blue, and then other notes played by other people would appear. And so, like, let's just say, oh, I don't know, one musician plays a D, he may not always hear it in burlap blue, but there are a variety of musicians who have been documented. Tori Amos is one, Pharrell Williams is another one, Duke Ellington, Nabokov, the writer, saw colors in pictures, in colors. Franz Liszt, Marilyn Monroe supposedly heard in color. And so when you take these leaps and you look at the tone wheel of tastes, and you can go, you know, Grenache is soprano and Syrah is maybe the baritone and Mourvedre would be the bass. And you take another leap and you go tones as colors. You know, we use what, 10% of our brain. What do we know what's happening, you know, sonically that can connect to our taste buds, and how does, you know, wine respond to sounds? You know, you stir wines to suspend the lees, and who knows what sonic vibrations would do for a wine. How far I personally take that, I leave wines on the gross lees for almost the entire process, and rack once before bottling. So there isn't a whole lot of that sort of thing for me personally, but I do think that there's definitely room for exploration with regard to sonic vibration and how it affects the liquid.
Can't disagree with that at all. When I was at Alta Colina, Bob Tillman is a classical music fan to the depths. And so classical music in the cellar was the norm. And, you know, I knew a little bit about classical. I took some piano lessons, and that's what I was trained, you know, to learn some classical, but I quit because I really loved guitar instead and thought I was a rock star. But, you know, Bob played classical during those times in the cellar when it was quiet. There was no pumps going. They were just tasting or whatever. But during harvest, you know, Maggie would be over there playing some music, and it wasn't classical. And so we played a variety of music during the actual processing. And once we got in the cellar, it was nice and quiet. We had a lot of classical. And then I went from there to Chris, or prior to that, it was Chris Cherry, which was, you know, like I said, could be Eminem, could be anything, you know. So the music, I believe the music does play a part in it too. And the vibration part of it is probably needs to be studied more, but the wine will respond. You know, wine is lively, it's full of life. And so it has to respond to, you know, some of the outside environment. So that's probably a big part of it too. Good question from Michael.
Yeah.
Can we call Michael Higgy Baby, or is that not cool?
Higgy Baby.
He's going to be writing a book about our area, by the way.
Awesome.
You'll be hearing more about him.
That'll
Dan,
be good.
you have something to say about that?
Yeah, so all of our fermentations here are wild, and we don't inoculate, and a lot of them take, you know, a month is pretty quick for us, and some of our ferments take a full year before things settle down. And I think we really like them that way, sort of the complexity that long ferments bring to the wine. And personally, I sort of feel like playing very depressing or angry music sort of like slows the ferments down a little bit, and like
Bauhaus.
Yeah, and
typo negative.
Yeah, and on the flip side, like whenever we move wine in the winery, if it's a racking or bottling, I want to play like really angry music to like make the wine a little aggressive and edgy, and like give it some pent up aggression as it goes into bottle, and give it some fighting spirit for the long haul. So
Cool.
no scientific backing for it, but it sort of makes sense in my head. Mark was talking about like Metallica bourbon. I know someone was doing a ghost chili pepper stout beer or something like that, and they call it Ghostface Killa. And they just put like headphones on the barrel that they were aging in for a full year and just blasted Wu-Tang Clan.
Nice.
So
Nice.
Oh my God, what's
Mark,
happening?
Mark, you mentioned somewhere in the Saxum cellar, there's some Foudres that have John's, John, or something of different artists on the barrel or on the Foudre written.
Well, there's a whole everything in that cellar for as long as, I was there and started poking my head around 2014 and naming everything. We got to, so enthusiastic. I put D light on the light switch. So, I mean, everything had a name and it was usually musical. The wooden fermenters from, Woody Guthrie,
Woody.
the Woodies all had names, and and the Foudres had names. The concrete fermenters now, Mr. Smith has gone to the Princess Leia, Darth Vader, Chewbacca. They're now Star Wars characters. But there's a great deal of naming various cellar implements on musical entities, and it's a great way to personify everything that you're working with, and to continue to make sure that not only you treat your wines and the equipment properly, but that you infuse it with life. And like you said, Paul, that wine is alive. It's a living, breathing thing that can live longer than human beings, and it's important to treat it as such.
Totally agree.
There's also something to be said so trying to make kind of this loose correlation to the biodynamic calendar in when to taste, when it's a fruit day, when it's not, and all of that also almost correlates to music and what you want to drink and what you want to listen to, maybe according to your own calendar and according to your own mood. And for me, I think I feel like I can drink Grenache, I can drink Cinsault, I can drink Gamay any day of the week, no matter what. It makes me happy. And so many other, and with any music for that matter. And so it's one of those things where I think you make it what it is for yourself. And clearly you three have some really different personalities when it comes to music, when it comes to wine. And I dig this conversation. I have one last thing to say, and it's actually a comment from one of our people, that it was a follow-up to Michael's question, which is, it's super interesting. A Japanese scientist did an amazing study and wrote a book on the hidden messages in water, which also speaks to the vibration the water is subjected to. So super interesting book and study. Scientist's name is Masaru Emoto. And so that's
very cool.
Something to go and look up later. I think.
Thank you, Syrah. Yeah,
that's cool. Thanks, Syrah, for mentioning that. You guys, this has been super interesting. I told you I didn't want to keep you more than an hour. I'm trying not to. But
we still have plenty of wine left. We could probably keep going.
We easily could. Actually, I have a friend texting me, go longer, talk about more stuff. So no, all good.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, it is actually really cool. So thank you, you guys. Oh, wait, one last thing. Mark, I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but yesterday we were talking and I asked you if you have other musical things happening coming up. And
yeah, thanks for asking about that. So the Lefty Frizzell tribute, that's something that came out pretty easy to find. You just look for Lefty Frizzell loaded with Lefty. Also just finished producing with a friend of mine, Tim Bloom from the Mother Hips. I produced a Merle Haggard tribute with him that's in the final mixing stage right now, and I'm in tribute mode. I feel like maybe the universe is saying think a little bit less about yourself and more about the accomplishments of others right now. So I've been studying other performers, like studying other people's wines and seeing what I can and learn from them. So this Bob Dylan tribute I'm working on, just picked up a book that I'm diving deep into right now, called The Black Poets, which is black poetry from American history, from the birth of our nation through slavery to beyond. And so I'm just sort of soaking up things beyond my ego right now and trying to get centered for the next wave of what's going on this planet.
Right on, bud.
Good
Thank you
call.
very much. Very cool. All right, right on. Daniel and Pilo, Mark, cheers, guys.
Hey guys.
Cheers.
Cheers back.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys spending the time. Thank you, everybody still watching. Hopefully, if you're still out there, note that next week, even though we went to Thursdays, we're going to Wednesday next week because we got a special opportunity to have take part in an international program, the Wine Origins Alliance. They are coordinating 15 different regions from 7 different countries, all going to be showing wines, showing these types of things from all of those regions all over the world that same day on Wednesday of next week.
Right.
Fun. Ours is still going to be at 3 o'clock next week. We're trying to showcase the diversity of Paso, showcasing some Bordeaux varieties, Rhone varieties, and Zinfandel. I can only fit 3 people. And so I've got Dow, I've got Tablas Creek, and I have J. Ducey, all showcasing their wines next week.
Awesome.
And of course, so many of them have an international footprint themselves in their own distribution. So I've asked them to be a part of this since this is going international. So please join us next week, 3 o'clock Wednesday. After that, we will go back to Thursdays. I don't know the show yet, but I've got some ideas. If you have ideas, please email me over at pasowine.com. You can find my information, and I'll be happy to take some suggestions. I think it'll be fun to keep this going as even though we're reopening, it's really fun to come up with some of these really cool concepts that bring the personality of Paso out. So right on, you guys. See you next
Thanks,
time.
everybody. Awesome
care,
wines.
Later.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Great.
you. See you guys.